As some of you might know, I have a background in witchcraft. I was a witch for 16 years, and I was a witch high priest for 9 years. I also was actually ordered by my superiors at one point to infiltrate a major Christian church in suburban Milwaukee and try to bring down the pastor. And fortunately, the Holy Spirit intervened, and I ended up getting saved instead. Hallelujah. That was way back in 1984. Now, since that time, I have grown, and it's no question that there are Christians, churches that are being infiltrated by witches, and there are also, believe it or not, there's a couple of books out there about how to practice Christian witchcraft, how to be both a Christian and a witch.
Hey, this is Valerie Love. How are you? I wanted to share with you a little bit today about my journey as a Christian witch and how I got here and how I came to that and what's really going on. And one of the most important things that we can do in life, one of the most important things that you can do in life is stand up and be all of who you are, regardless of what people say, regardless of religion, regardless of your teachers, regardless of your parents, regardless of your clan, the people that you grew up with, regardless of all of that. One day, you've got to know within yourself, you've got to stand up and within yourself be all of who you are created to be. One of the spirit guides that I talked to on the other side, his name is Arcturus. And Arcturus says this, that before you came here into this time-space third dimensional continuum, this time-space reality, as we call it, this linear kind of life in the third dimension, before you came here, you, of course, were in spirit, without form. And you chose to pour yourself, to somewhat constrict yourself, take on levels of density. You came through levels of density. What? And you became a formed being, yes? Now, that didn't cause your spirit self to go away. Your spirit self is simply now in form as a human being, as we call it. Okay? So before you did that, before you made that step, you created a divine destiny plan. When you were on the other side, before you were born onto this earth school, you created a divine destiny plan. You created this divine destiny plan with a team of guides and spirit helpers and people on the other side, beings, not people, beings on the other side.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone that's tuning in tonight. And I know that there's a lot of chatter that is going on right now because of the discussion that just took place, the debate that just took place on Brother Berean channel between Dante Forston and Vocab Malone. And for me, the question we have to ask is what was accomplished, right? Dante did everything he was supposed to do. He did a great job on there, but ultimately, looking at the chat, even listening to Vocab Malone, he's still going to do what he do. We see a lot of witchcraft, and that's why I made it clear on that channel. There was no need of me trying to debate or trying to prove something that even Vocab Malone and others cannot prove themselves. That was just a deflection. The deflection from the ultimate discussion, the discussion between Vocab Malone and Muhammad Tazamor. So that was just to an additional deflection that I chose that I was not going to be part of it. Why? Because why am I going to debate about something that is my heritage? That's my family tradition. Debate about pews, for example, that they can't even read. See, we have to, when you start looking at the bigger picture, this is the witchcraft that we're dealing with. See, I'm going to give you some we're going to deal with Halloween, right? But we're going to deal with it from an unconventional way, contrary to what you are used to listening to. Contradictory, and not contradictory, but in contrast to what you've been accustomed to hearing. I'm going to show you what witchcraft is. This is what I've been teaching in our assembly. This is why I made the choice to pivot away from these guys. Now, of course, I'm going to jump out there whenever need be to explain or defend. But ultimately, we got bigger fish to fry. We got a lot of problems internally that we have to deal with. If you want to even call that a debate, it really wasn't a debate. What questions were answered? Dante asked the primary question about, okay, yeah, you could talk about the 400 years, but what is the ultimate question? Who does the 400 years associate or attaches or is attached to? And I got some key scriptures. I can literally shut down this whole spiritual Israel that Apostle Paul, that many are using Apostle Paul to speak on, not properly teaching his stuff correctly, his letters correctly. And do you know that that is still part of witchcraft? We got a lot to deal with. We're going to be dealing with this for another week as we build up the narrative to get you to understand what witchcraft is. We've been institutionalized to thinking that a witchcraft is someone like a witch is someone that has a bump on their nose, green, with a black pointy hat on, got the broomstick. We're thinking that that's a witch. We're thinking from that perspective. When we think about casting spells, we think about a witch standing over a pot, stirring up her witch's brew. No, that's not what it is. What witchcraft is anyone that is bending and twisting the laws of the Most High. The natural laws that he put in place for the stars, which you would call astrology, the laws of gravity, everything that he put in place, he put laws there. And when you start bending and twisting, guess what? That is witchcraft. So we got a lot to deal with tonight. And this is why, again, I have to look at things from being a pastor, because I was not going to resort or allow someone to disrespect me and call me name or call a name. And then guess what? I have to defend even that. But what does it do? It literally causes problems, because we have our people, we got young babes that's trying to come to this understanding. And if they don't see a difference between us and what they're coming out of in terms of, for example, if you're in the streets and you come out of the streets and then you come into what's going on right now, the urban apologists or the Christian church and the Hebrew Israelites is almost like a Bloods in the Crypt type thing that is going on. And so when you look in the super chat, you see all kinds of insults and all. You know what? We got bigger fish to fry, right? The urban apologetic community, they're not at the top of the food chain of this, right? Bishop Mason is not at the top of the food chain, even though they are above where Vocab Malone and those guys is. Now you got to go further up the food chain to really understand the deception. Dante gave resources and references after reference. But what we saw was other people being pulled into. Teo Ministries had nothing to do with that discussion. So that's what confusion does. Confusion always want to pit brother against brothers, sister against sister. That is what confusion is. So before we get started here, I want to give you a sample of what witchcraft is, right? Because again, we think that witchcraft is something that we've seen on the horror movies. But I want you to understand this, guys. Witchcraft, let me give you a sample of witchcraft, and then we're going to go into our lesson here, because I'm going to move forward and continue to do what the Most High has called me to do, and that is do what? Teach our people, wake our people up. See, they want each minute that we spend trying to go back and forth with those guys is taken away from the opportunity to continue to do what? Reach out to our brothers and sisters, give the sound information like we've been doing. See, we don't have time to take what can be a potential $1 million thought over 5 cents or 5 seconds of nonsense. Now, I'm saying it in the clean version of what we would say when I used to be out there in the streets. We were more graphic with what we would say. All right. But ultimately, guys, we have to get out of that. We'll just leave those guys alone. They are going to do what they're going to do. Right now, what's going to happen, the playbook is to get us riled up, and then we open up our platforms for them to come in because they know that we are getting what? More views. They know that we're getting, think about it. Think about it. Right now, we're at what? About 90 people live right now. And the only reason why the numbers are lower is because I can guarantee you other people are doing lives based off of what just transpired. Had this not transpired, would be easy at 150 views. People watching this at one time. But because of what's happening here, right? Only when you look at everything that's going on, everyone wants to get what? Access to what we're doing to try to what? Stop this momentum of this awakening. Vocab Malone did not denounce James White. He did not denounce Pastor Durbin. He did not denounce. He continued to talk around it. So he makes it clear that guess what? Just like what he's supposed to do, he's going to defend his own people. That's what he's supposed to do. We're supposed to defend what? Our people. When it's all said and done, he teaches the word, but when it's all said and done, he still will do what? Defend his own people. He will not throw them under the bus. So again, they want to divide what we got going on here. They want to have distractions going on. Right. So now guess what's happening? You guys remember the scene from Matrix? I was going to put it up in here and upload it because guess what's happening? If somebody go live right now to discuss what happened, guess what? People are going to be flocking to the different lives saying, hey, this person talking about the debate, this person talking about the debate, this person is talking about the debate. And guess what's getting credit for everything that's going on? Confusion. Hasatan did what he was supposed to do. is to cause us to what? Not talk about what we're supposed to be talking about, but now we're what? We're running like back in the day when somebody is fighting in the hallway, or somebody going to fight after school. Everyone's flocking around. Herd mentality. That's herd mentality. See, I'm in a place right now. I don't care what anybody said about me. Why? Because I've been on this planet long enough. I was raised up in the streets. I came from hard times, a household with that was suffering from hard times. I grew up in some of the worst communities that people would lie, to talk about, want to pretend that they've been there. I was raised up in Newark, New Jersey. I lived in Harlem. I lived in Chicago. I lived in Detroit, all the worst places. So I don't care what people have to say. And you should not care care as well. None of these people have a heaven and hell to put you in. But you know what they can do? They can manipulate situations. They can manipulate things to cause you to what? Forfeit the things that the Most High has set aside for you to do. That's all Vocab wants to do. He wants not just Vocab, but this entire group that's coming at us. They want to stir up confusion. They want to put us against one another. They want us to be focused on what? Focused on the craziness and not really go forward with the teachings. I'm not dealing with all of that. I'm not dealing with all that anymore because it's time consuming. That's why I transitioned from Facebook. When I was on Facebook, guess what? Every time you turn around, I'm putting out fires, putting out fires, putting out fires, putting out fires. Some of you guys know it. People would tag me and, hey, this person. That's how I got in contact with Bishop Mason and Damon Richardson, because people were going to their things, their channels, and when they couldn't answer questions and start getting caught up, guess what? They'll come to me and I go defending them, defending our community. But guys, after a while, it gets tiresome because ultimately they are not going to what? Do anything. They're not going to move. They're not going to budge. Bishop Mason do not want to have a discussion with me. Look, some of you guys witnessed on Facebook, I've shut down rabbis. I've shut down every group. I even shut down that guy. What's his name? That was I can't remember his name. He was supposed to be a pastor and now he's in the Kemetic community. I shut him down. I had shut him down. I had also with the guy, Ray Hagen, or whatever his name is. I had a number of people that were scared. Yeah, that's his name, Wesley. I shut him down. He was scared. He put stuff out there challenging people, and I accepted his challenge, and he would not have a discussion with me. Got the receipts to prove it. From that, so right now, it's like, yeah, Kevin Wesley, that's his name. I dealt with all of those guys. I challenged all those guys. It's all about platforms. It's all about building up numbers. It's all about building up monies. So again, that's witchcraft. Witchcraft. Guess what? Media is the plurality of medium. In other words, guess what? These witches need what? They need a medium to function at. And we are continuously giving them what? Our room to our space. I'm not doing that anymore. That's why I said, hey, you know what? Why am I going to debate you about my family heritage, my family tradition? Why am I going to debate? I don't need to confirm anything with you. Because as you see, he took everything that Dante highlighted and threw it right back at him. And what did he do? He went in his way. He's going his way with his space. Wanting to challenge him again for another debate. What for? To get what? Further removed from the initial issue that was there. So again, guys, I'm just making it clear. I could care less what these guys say or do, because we could not. They made it clear that they don't want to have discussions. Long as my name does not come up in a slanderous perspective, guess what? Then I'm going to do what the scripture tells us. Since we could not talk about it, guess what? Let's go to the court system. Let them deal with it. That's why I made it clear. Hey, if you want me, I could read ancient and modern Hebrew. But if you want me to give proof to you, hey, we could go before a judge and let them make a determination. Hey, I don't have a problem with doing that. But guys, we have to stay the course. We don't need any more distractions. We already, as a community, is dealing with a lot. And I know I'm starting out with this before I'm going into the teaching, but I'm going to show you here, guys, the witchcraft that's among us. Look at what you just heard here. Christian witches. So that's why I want to make it clear. I don't deal with those guys anymore. That's why I made it clear in the last discussion we had. Look, the history goes beyond vocab alone coming on the scene. I was dealing with the Masons and them guys years ago, me and Pastor Majors. But we shifted. We had all the receipts, but you guys didn't know that we had all these receipts until what? I had to defend myself earlier this year. But I still held back a lot of the receipts because it's something for me. It doesn't make me feel good having to go at our own brothers and sisters publicly. I don't feel good about that because that gives them more ammunition. You think I felt good about exposing Pastor Dowell, but I had to do it because of what? He began to publicly threaten me and my family. But I didn't feel good about it. I don't feel good about the state of where he is and the many of our brothers and sisters and all that. I don't feel good about that. But I will defend when it's necessary. That's what they want us to do. And many will teach Nehemiah chapter 4. And I'm going to go into the lesson. Nehemiah chapter 4, right? They'll teach that and say, hey, and the people had a mind to work. If you really want to understand the text, if you want to see how we're going to be restored and redeemed and, salvation is going to be restored to Israel, you have to understand the blueprint. The blueprint is right there in Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah chapter 4 said the people had a mind to work, which really means build. But guess what? Nehemiah at the beginning of the book, he asked a question about the state of his people. He didn't like what he heard. And so he went into prayer and fasting, seeking the Most High. And then what happened? The Most High gave him a plan. The first thing that he had to do with the plan is get all the scattered people, even though they were still many of our brothers and sisters were still in Israel, but they were still scattered. Why? Divided among ideology and how they were stealing from each other. Capitalism set in among the people of Israel. So what did he have to do? He had to come up with a plan through the Most High, how to first bring Israel together for one common cause. And what was the common cause? To rebuild, to repair the community, build a wall. First, we got to secure this place first. Once they secured the place, right? Once they secured the place, then they start focusing on internal issues. That's what we're missing. We're putting all of our business out in public. That's why I'm hesitant about going at our own brothers and sisters publicly. I like to do that internally, but many can't handle that and make it public. So guys, I wanted to just touch on that, guys. This is where we get into witchcraft. What is medium? Medium is the plurality of media. Media is the plurality of medium. So medium could be news articles, the new television shows, music, newspaper, magazines, social media sites, all these different things. Absolutely. Not all Israel is Israel. Absolutely. We learned that in the book of Esther, right? People began to call themselves Judah. And not everyone that was Judah was calling themselves Judah. You know what I mean? Well, put it this way. Not everyone that was calling themselves Judah was actually Judah. So we have to make sure that we put things in this proper perspective. You know what? My priority has shifted from dealing with the craziness. My priority is dealing with our people, uplifting our people, educating our people, making sure that you guys will be able to from wherever you may be able to take all these teachings and then help uplift our people where you located at. If you go back over this channel, you'll see I've posted key videos that'll help you articulate the text. I posted documentaries. I even given thorough step-by-step teachings. So guys, I am not going to deal with that tonight. I'm just going to be real. If you guys came on here hoping to see that I was going to go and, basically have a discussion about what occurred on the debate, I'm not going through all of that. You guys saw the debate. There's no need for me to discuss it and have a after party per se to discuss the debate. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be under that Morpheus fighting Neo spirit. When they, all of them cleared out when they found out Morpheus was fighting Neo. They dropped what they were doing, right? And start what? Just so that they could see a virtual battle going on. They weren't physically fighting. It was a virtual. Doesn't that sound parallel to where we are right now? They all looking virtually at the screen of something, a battle of the minds. Man, I'm staying right where I'm at. You know what I mean? Because there are bigger things to deal with right now. And right now, it's above the pay grade of vocab Malone. Dante, he did a great job. But now, moving forward, he's above that. He's above that. He's above that. Teo, they're above that. But what they want to have happen is us have after discussions, so that way now they're going to have us now try to be on alert to see if vocab Malone says something, if Nephronidi says something, if all these other groups say something. Why? They're still getting video watches, whether you like it or not, whether you click the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Guess what? They are still getting the statistics that they desire. So guys, let's let the dead bury the dead and leave them alone. Right? Let the dead bury the dead. Let's leave them alone. Let's focus on building up this fortified front, this fortified wall, and then we can deal with whatever disagreements we have internally. All right. So I just wanted to start off with that. I just want to just kind of touch on that real quick for those that, again, that are coming here to watch me teach tonight. I am not going to touch on that debate tonight. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to deal with what I have scheduled myself to do. We are going to deal with the Feast of Halloween. Hell enlarge herself, right? Coming from Isaiah, right? Hell enlarges herself daily. All right. So we're going to deal with that, guys. Free your mind from all the craziness, but I'm going to give you some information to show the witchcraft that we witnessed today. Let's deal with that. All right. Let's deal with that. Let's deal with the deception that's among us. Let's deal with the witchcraft. Let's build up your discernment. All right. So let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. All right. Enough is enough of that. Let's get down to what we all came here tonight for. All right. So let's build on this right here. All right. Feast of Halloween. Hell enlarged herself, part 2. All right. So I encourage you guys, go back and watch part 1. For those that did not watch it, I covered a lot in part 1, a lot. All right. Dealing with witchcraft, dealing with breaking down divination and all those different things. Watch part 1 after we conclude this. Put that on your list. Sit down with your family. Sit down with your spouse. Sit down with those that are kicking against the pricks. I guarantee you, they watch this. They're going to actually learn something here and see some of the deceptions. All right. So let's start off with Halloween. All right. We see here the etymology dictionary definition of Halloween. Give us some information here. You see Halloween, right? But we see here, it says the word and magical lore about the date was popularized by Burns' poems, right? But then let's go further to what it says. All right. You see where it says here, it is a Scottish shortening of All Hallow Even. In other words, Eve of All Saints. Last night of October, the last night of the year in the old Celtic calendar. And it goes on to say a night for witches. Wow. Think about this. A night for witches. All of this is taking place after the holy feast days. right? This is dealing with what? The Celtic New Year's. Our New Year's already occurred back what we would call April, back what we would refer to as the new moon after the first new moon after the spring equinox. Not getting into all of that. There's a video on this platform that gives you in-depth information on that, but we're not trying to go. I'm not trying to get into all that tonight. All right. But nevertheless, a pagan holiday, right? Given a cursory baptism. But then you see hollow plus even. And then it goes on to say hollow day for All Saints Day. So again, the last night of the year in the old Celtic calendar, where it was old year's night, a night for witches. Let me read this over again. I'm fumbling over my words tonight. I'm all amped up now. So the last night of the year in the old Celtic calendar, where it was old year's night, a night for witches, a pagan holiday given a cursory baptism. So let's deal with the hollow plus even. Let's start with hollow. This is what it says about hollow. And you see the noun definition of it, and you see the verb. But notice what it says. Holy person, saint. That's the key. Old English, halaga or halga. And it says from hollow, the verb, obsolete, except in Halloween, right? But nevertheless, it says holy person, saint. And I want to make this clear. Where you see this word saint, that word saint, this construct, when it was created strictly for the Catholic Church. It was strictly for them to deem or make a determination after someone had died to give them what is called sainthood, right? So one of the criteria is that person had to be confirmed to what? Performing at least one miracle before they died. So the Catholic Church, according to their doctrine, they are the ones that make the determination whether or not if someone's holy or unholy when they die. They, according to their doctrines, teach that they have the authority over that, over both realms, the temporal and the spiritual realm. This is the same spirit that we see right now. Aren't we dealing with this right now, that we have a group of people trying to tell us who we are? So holy person, saint. All right. But let's see the verb definition of this. It says, now this is going to fall more in line with the Hebrew word quadash. It says here, the verb definition of hollow, it says to make holy, sanctify, to honor as holy, consecrate, ordain, right? That is the definition pretty much of the Hebrew word quadash, which transliterates to holy. All right, but let's go further here. Let's see what even is. And we're going to have to do a lesson here. I'm going to do the lesson, the deception of the English language, to show just how things are manipulated and changed, and show you that words have meaning. And you'll see a lot of behaviors that we see right now that's associated with certain words. But nevertheless, even means to make even, to make level, liken, compare. So just more information here. Halloween is the Celtic New Year called Samhain. Now, of course, here you see on your screen, it says, if you want to read it and say, pronounce this word as Samhain, but it's actually Samhain. All right. So Halloween is an annual holiday that is celebrated in many Western countries on October 31st. And many churches celebrate this by calling it Harvest Fest and some of the other terms that they've come up with to try to have an alternative to this right here. See, we living in a day and time that many are trying to come up with alternatives and finding salvation and trying to find safety in alternatives. But I'm here to tell you, alternatives is not the answer. Many look at evil as being an alternative to good. Many look at Hasatan as being an alternative to the Most High. Guess what? Hasatan is not the equal opposite of the Most High. He has no power. Put it this way, he has some power, but the Most High has all power. So we're living in a day and time of alternatives. Okay. So let's go ahead and delve into this some more. All right. So Halloween, on this day, children would dress up in costumes and trick or treat from house to house. Adults attend costume parties, make jack-o'-lanterns, visit haunted houses, and have seances and tell scary stories. Many Christians ignore the obvious ungodly customs of Halloween, and many still what try to do alternatives for these things. Right? So Halloween evolved from the Celtic New Year, Samhain. So the Celts lived approximately 2,000 years ago in what is now called Great Britain, Ireland, and France. Let me say that again. Celts lived approximately 2,000 years ago in what is now called Great Britain, Ireland, and France. To the Celts, Samhain was the day the life of the sun ceased, thus causing summer to end. It was also believed that during Samhain, the veil, right, or the veil rather, between the physical and spiritual world was the most thin, and that souls were released from the land of the dead. And so Druid priests set sacred bonfires on hilltops and sacred plants, animals, and humans to the Gaelic deities. In other words, they were what? Sacrifice plants. They'll sacrifice animals. They'll sacrifice humans. But notice what it says on hilltops and sacred plants, right? Think about this. Think about this, right? When you really understand this, right? If you go to Jeremiah chapter 2, I believe down around verse 20, you'll see that it says Israel played the harlot. All right. The Israel played the harlot by doing what? They said on every high hill, under every green tree, they played the harlot. So what they were doing all kinds of sexual rituals, right? Hoping that would bring them a good harvest. Right. So with that being said, that's what we see right here. Right. Some of those practices right here didn't start with the Celts, but we see it goes beyond that. Israel was already doing some of these things that the Most High told them not to do on hilltops and sacrifice plants, animals, humans to the Gaelic deities. So we see Israel had an issue with what? Taking on other people's belief systems. We see that in Jeremiah chapter 2, around verse 20. It said that they became what? A degenerate plant. Thus, that degenerate plant is what? A mistletoe. A mistletoe is a poisonous plant. The mistletoe is a parasitical plant that what attaches itself to other plants and what suck it dry and also what strangle it, really disfigure that plant because what it is a parasite. That's what Israel became, a degenerate plant. All right. So Celtic households relit their hearths from the flames of the bonfires. These fires were used to scare away any unwanted spirits. And so one popular belief was that the dead who had been offended by the living would return to destroy crops or bring about misfortunes. Right. So during this year or during this day, the Celts they also wore costumes and engaged in dances that were symbolic of the cycles of life and death. And see, this is one of the things that I want to point out, guys, that we have to be careful of what dances that we are engaging in, because notice the Celtics are doing what? Dances in a circular motion, right? That represents what? The cycles of life and death. So we have to even be careful of how we what? Praising the Most High. We have to be careful of how we even praise the Most High, because that circle means something, right? That circle has meaning. Okay, so during this day, the Celts also wore costumes and engaged in dances that were symbolic of the cycles of life and death. Do you know that for every single day of the week, right? When you start looking in the paganism, there was a different religion for every day of the week. 360 different religions, right? Pagan religions. And believe it or not, Islam was one of them before Muhammad got involved with it. It was one of 360 pagan religions. The goddess that they worship was the goddess Alat, not Allah, right? Alat. Okay. So nevertheless, let's go ahead and move forward here. So many dressed in animal costumes to signify the release of the souls that resided in animals. You see, this is where the masks come from. See, this is why when you read Genesis chapter 6, it said it was evil in man thoughts, them hearts and minds were evil continuously because we perverted everything. But then when you get to Romans chapter 1, the letter to the Romans, Apostle Paul said what? That men have taken what? The uncorruptible most high and made what? Him, into what? A corruptible images of man. In other words, he took what? How is that corruptible? You'll see that he mentioned animals there too. You see it in the artwork, taking human heads, or should I say animal heads, and putting it on human bodies. Right? You see that in the Egyptian on the hieroglyphs. You see that in the Sumerians. You see that here, even with what? The Celtics, they will take what? Like I read here, many dressed in animal costumes to signify the release of the souls that resided in animals. But they will put on what? Dress as animals. They take, have animal heads and all these different things. All right. So we got to be careful, guys. We got to be careful about this. Masks made of animal heads were adorned to hide from the trickery of feared deities. The priests also attempted to communicate with the dead and prognosticated using the remains of sacrificed animals. Right. So again, you see the perversions here. So who is sowing? Who is this guy right here? Who is this person right here? Put it that way. Who is this spirit? Right. When we start going further, you start understanding Samael, or Samael, however you want to pronounce it. Right. Dread Lord. Right. The Semitic version of this was the Asiatic Sama or Samana or Verti or Samaverti, or however you want to pronounce it, which is the leveler. In other words, judge of the dead. And he goes on to say, identified with the underworld, King Yama. Guys, I'm telling you, go back and watch that lesson I did on Noah. And I break down this word Yama. But anyway, the Sama Veda called him a storm god. Now we're getting into the Veda. Now we're getting into Hinduism. Called him what? A storm god. Clothed in black clouds, like his later incarnation, Satan, he was prince of the power of the air. Also, the Celtic god Samhain, the Feast of the Dead, Christianized as All Souls. In other words, they decided to try to come up with an alternative. That's all they're saying. They came up with an alternative. Okay. So the alternative All Souls Day or All Saints Day to be an alternative to the celebration of Halloween. Okay. So this is the Celtics' place of worship. Some of you guys familiar with this, but I got to go through here and I got to walk you through here, guys, on this block that we're dealing with today. This is the Celtics' place of worship. The Celtics' place of worship is what they called a church. And we're going to break this down here. Stonehenge is what? The Celtic place of worship, which is called the church. This is the original church right here. Right? No matter how many try to candy coat it, this is the original church right here. And I'm going to prove that here. So let's expose this real quick. Right? So you have a circle, and let me give you the definition of circle. Circle, a figure of a circle, small ring, hoop, circular orbit, right? And we see that circle, right? It comes from the same word that circus come from. But let's go to circus. Let's see what it says here for circus. Ring, circle line, right? Then it goes on to say from or cognate with Greek kirkos, a circle, a ring, all right? And then it goes on to say, in reference to modern large arenas for performances, traveling show, right? So a circus is a ring, right? A circle line reference to large arenas for performances. This is what, hence the traveling shows. So let's deal with the meaning of the word church, right? So church, public place of worship, right? And then you start going through the different layers of it, Proto-Germanic and all that, Old Norse, Frisian, Middle Dutch, Old High German. But we'll deal with this in the deception of the English language, because I really go into the Proto-Indo-European tree, right? But nevertheless, let's go ahead and move forward here. So it goes on and see here, we see the Greek Kyriakon, right? It means what? Of the Lord. In other words, was used of the houses of Christian worship since the 3rd century, right? So it's also referred to what? The Lord's house. What we see here of the Lord, right? Was used of houses of Christian worship since the 3rd century. So it's telling us that this word church did not begin to be associated with Catholicism, with what we call Christianity, these systems, until the 3rd century. And if we want to be more specific, we're talking about 330 AD. All right. Right. So let's deal with this some more. Right. Let's deal with this some more. So again, was used of houses of Christian worship since 330 AD, or the 300 AD, however you want to go, whatever one you want to make reference, more particular 330 AD. Right. So is this the reason why the church have the appearance of a circus? There's all kinds of chaos that's going on within there. Is this the reason why the church appears to be a traveling show? Right? Is that the reason? But let's go further. Let me give you proper clarity of this word church, because many will automatically default and say, and we were institutionalized to say, that church is a transliterated word of ecclesia. So the Dictionary of Phrase and Fable by E. Cobham Brewer, 1894. This is what it says. The etymology of this word is generally assumed to be from the Greek kurios oikos, in other words, house of God. And notice it's still what? Referring to a physical place of worship. But it goes on to say, but this is most improbable, as the word existed in all the Celtic dialects long before the introduction of Greek. No doubt the word means what? A circle. The places of worship among the Germans and Celtic nations were always circular. Let me say that again. The places of worship among the German and Celtic nations were what? Always circular. Can I say this again for the people in the back? The places of worship, right, among the Germans and the Celtics were always what? Circular. Let me put a 3-piece in here. Right? See, this is going to break up some of the confusion, right? But it goes on to say, witness the complex of Stonehenge, right? Remember what I said? Stonehenge is the original church. Avebury, Silbury Hill, Stanton Drew, the dolmens of Brittany, right? And the relic shrines of India. See, here in close to where we live at, there is a Hindu church. Right. And they do not practice Christianity. See, we've been institutionalized to thinking that, guess what? The Catholicism has what? The patent, has the monopoly on the term church. But notice what it says here again. The places of worship among the Germans and the Celtic nations were always circular. Always what? Circular. What? All right. So we just this alone, we done knocked down some of the what? Poor teachings. So part of the confusion is, right? 1 minute we're taught, y'all been here. 1 minute we're taught that, wait a minute, the church is the people, but then you having a church building fund. Are y'all going to church tonight? We see that is referred to what? The building fund. So this word is a word of confusion. I did a full teaching on this, but I'm just giving you some highlights from it. The word of confusion, church. That's one of the words that I did. I mean, one of the words that I highlighted in the series, words of confusion. That was part of what? The late night playbook. All right. So again, when you say church, the people that should be mad is those that are descendants of the Celts, right? Right? Because why? Because that church, right? Church is part of their heritage. Why? They called it a circle, the church, right? It was what? Their place of worship was what? A circle. It was shaped like a circle. It was circular. Okay. So let's move forward here. So we are taught that church is a transliteration of the Greek word ecclesia. But we're going to get proper clarity on this. Okay. So it says here, when we go to the definition of this word, it says a calling out, a religious congregation. Then we see assembly. We see church, right? But in parentheses, you see Jewish synagogue or Christian communities of members on earth or saints in heaven or both. So we're going to break this down real quick so that way you guys get a proper understanding of this, because this is where confusion come in. Because wait a minute, is we a church? Are we an assembly? Wait a minute, both of these words can be what? Synonymous, used interchangeably. Let me give you proper clarity here, right? In the in-depth portion details of the definition of this word, it goes on to say gathering of citizens called out from their homes into some public place and assembly. Then sub entry A, it says, of entry number 1, an assembly of the people convened at the public place of the council for the purpose of deliberating, right? But then we see the assembly of the Israelites, right? And when we put this in the proper context, and where we see this this word is being used in the Greek written manuscripts, we'll come to understand that the word ecclesia, right, is actually referring to what? The called out congregation of Israel. Because when the Hebrew Israelite Messiah said, on this rock I will build my church, he was not dealing with Roman Catholicism. He wasn't dealing with all those outsider the nations on the outside. He was dealing with who? The Israelites. Israel is what? As we see here, gathering citizens called out from their homes. But guess what? We know that Israel is what? A called out people. All right, so let me break this down some more. Who is the called out congregation? Ecclesia. Who is the called out congregation? It is the assembly of the Israelites. So another transliteration of, that's interchangeable with ecclesia is synagogue, right? So let's see what synagogue means. It says the regular place or regular public worship of the Jews. But notice what this says here. When we go further here with the old French, we see here it says synagogue, mosque, pagan temple. So when you see synagogue, contrary to what you and I have been taught to believe, that term synagogue wasn't something that was a word, a construct that was strictly for the Israelites. It wasn't a Hebrew Israelite word. That word was what? Part of the culture, places of worship that the Greeks worship, that was called the synagogue. All right, we gotta go further with this. We got to get a better understanding of these different words. Words have meaning, and this is why we see certain behaviors among the people of the Most High. So we see here where it says place of assembly, to gather, bring together, assemble, together, put in motion. But we're going to go further here. We're going to give this approach this from the Hebraic school of thought, because when you read, for example, like many would teach within Christianity and Catholicism, they're referred to as church fathers, right? If you study Eusebius and some of the early church fathers, they would tell you that the disciples wrote their what? Their testament, their testimonies in what? Their native tongue. Their native tongue was not Greek. Their native tongue was Hebrew. So they would not have used the term ecclesia. They would have used this term quahal. So quahal is the Hebrew word for assembly. All right. Right. So when we go to that definition of the word congregation, this is where it could be what? Confusion. Because you see congregation here says a gathering, assembly. So we see what? Congregation is being used what? Synonymous to what? Assembly. But we got to go further here. The Hebrew definition of assembly, as I pointed out, the word is quahal. It means what? Assemble. In other words, selves together. But it still doesn't give us what? The full understanding we need to know. So let's deal with the word idoth. When you read ancient Hebrew, you'll see this word here, right? This, this is the word that idoth is the word that's transliterated to what? Congregation, right? So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of congregation, right? And we're going to have to go into the layers of this because you'll see several entries on this, right? But let's start at the top here. It says assembly, company, congregation, multitude, people, swarm. So we see assembly and we see congregation used interchangeably. But that still doesn't give us any the information that we really need to know about the distinction between the two. But if you go down even further, you'll see what? Testimony, witness. Wait a minute. If you go to entry 5713, it means what? Testimony, witness. But if we go to the primitive root, right? And we'll see here, what does it say? A witness, testimony, a recorder. So what does this mean? Congregation, idoth, means a witness of people, evidence. Let me say that again. A witness of people, evidence. Let me confirm this. So guess what? The first letter that you see here is the ayin, which is silent in Israeli language. It means what? Eye, sight, watch. And then the dalath, which means door, gate, lid, focus. And then lastly, we have what? The tha, which means sign, mark, evidence. So guess what? These, just by these letters alone, give you the understanding of what idoth means. It means that, guess what? It's important for us to have what? Eyesight, have sight of what we're trying to witness. We have to what? Actually see, know what we're seeing. Door, gate, lid. We have to be focused, right? And we have to understand what? The sign, mark, evidence, the proof. That's the characteristics of a good witness. Someone who has clear eyesight, someone that is focused on their testimony and what? Understand what? The sign, the mark, the evidence accurately. And you can only do this through what? The Spirit of the Most High. So who are the witnesses? Idoth, right? Who is the witnesses? Who are the witnesses of people, right? Who is the witness of people? The whole kala, or some would just say kal, assembly, quahal, of what? Witnesses, idoth, of Israel. Now, I didn't change my I'll correct my slide here. I thought I did, but it should say witnesses. All right. Right. So that's what it actually means. Right. Let's go further here. What is the congregation of Israel? An assembly, quahal, of witnesses. Let me confirm this in Exodus chapter 12, verse 6, because you're going to see a distinction. Right. This is the first time Israel as a whole was referred to as what? An assembly of witnesses. It says here, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly, quahal, of the, in other words, and then you see here of the congregation of Israel, idoth, yashara'al, right? Assembly, right? Actually, congregation, which, when we see this word here, actually, idoth should be transliterated to what? Witnesses. So what this should say, to make it more accurately, the whole assembly of the witnesses of Israel. Let me confirm this some more, right? Because that's dealing with the Passover. Who are the witnesses? Israel. Who are the priests? Israel. Who is the peculiar people? Israel. So guess what? Israel is not a church, right? Israel, we are not a synagogue. We are the living witnesses and the blood descendants of Israel. We are the living witnesses. We are the living assembly of witnesses and blood descendants of Israel. We assemble ourselves in the temple, right? Let me say that again. We assemble ourselves in the temple. Let me see. Let me look at some of the comments here. All right. So you see here, our worship place, we have a particular word for our worship place. It's called the what? Mashkan, right? That's what we do our worship. Mashkan comes from the word shakan, right? Shakan is the presence, right? The dwelling, permanent, the dwelling, when we say shakan, you see that it's that word used for the Most High coming to dwell among his people, his spirit, his Holy Spirit. but it's been what warped. It's been some things have been added, right, to adding what the Shekinah, which getting into a whole nother thing when we start dealing with mysticism, right? Mysticism, right? But then when you understand Israel, place of worship, getting back to here, if you see the very first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, not very first letter, the second letter, which is the Bayath, and others would say Beth, right? But if you see the pictograph looks like what? An aerial view of the tabernacle, the aerial view of the first of the temple, right? But even the letter itself, which many refer to as paleo, does not look like what we see today. It's not a circle, right? It's a distinction that's very different from the Celtics, right? So nevertheless, let's delve into this some more. What did the Hebrew Israelite Messiah mean when he said, "Upon this rock I will build my church"? He did not mean what we have been taught, right? Because what we see, this is the breadcrumb. Why did he tell Peter on this rock he's going to build what? We'll get to this part of the answer. It's because Peter recognized and said, "Thou art what? The Messiah, son of the living Elohim." And the Hebrew Israelite Messiah said to him, "Peter, flesh and blood did not share this with you. Simon Barjona, flesh and blood did not reveal this thing to you." Right? And so he said, off of this, what? This confession, this testimony, this witness, I will build up who? Let me give you the answer right here. The whole assembly, Quahal, of the witnesses, Idath of Israel, Yashara al. Let me say that again. He meant his whole Kal or Kala of assembly, Quahal, of the witnesses, Idath of Israel. See, we got to make sure we understand this, because ancient Hebrew is not ambiguous, right? Has no ambiguity in it. But the way that it's taught now, guess what? We are seeing all kinds of ambiguity being added with this construct called church. Let's move forward here. So again, ecclesia gives us some understanding, but the key, it says, a called out congregation. But when we look at the details of that definition, it mentions Israel. So the Hebrew Israelite Messiah is not making a generic term. He's not dealing with, as the Catholic Church teach, that Peter is the first pope. He's the vicar. He's not the replacement. But it's not dealing with what we've been taught. Is because again, the word church is being used in both ways, for describe people and also to describe a building. All right. So the whole Kal or Kala of assembly, Quahal, of the witnesses, Idath of Israel, is not called to spread the gospel. I'm about to make some people mad up in here. I'm about to make some people mad right now. Guess what? The Hebrew Israelite Messiah did not teach the gospel. The disciples did not teach the gospel. We are not here to teach the gospel. I know I'm ruffling some feathers up in here. I know some of you guys probably wondering, where am I going at with this? Let me explain, let me explain. So let me say this again, right? Just so that way for the people in the back. The Hebrew Israelite Messiah did not teach us to spread the gospel.
What?
He did not teach us to spread the gospel. The disciples did not teach the gospel. So we're going to toss all that bad teaching out, because words have meaning. So let me explain it here, because I know some of you guys like, okay, Pastor, you're going to have to explain this right here. All right. So let me explain this to everyone, so you get a proper understanding when I say words have meaning. What is the gospel? That's the question. What is the gospel? The etymology definition of this word gospel. Notice what it says. Old English, God spell. This is why I'm going to prove to you that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah did not teach the people to spread God spell. So it says here, glad tidings announced by Jesus of one of the four gospels. Literally, good spell. Wait a minute. There's no, is there a such thing as good spell? Wait a minute. Is there such thing as good spell? That's like saying good poison. Is there such thing as good poison? You know, that's like saying good poison, right? Good spell, good poison. Let me break this down some more, guys. Right? Right? Glad tidings announced by Jesus, because you know when you say glad tidings, also you're taught good news as well. But I'm gonna give you proper clarity, right? Glad tidings announced by Jesus, one of the four gospels, right? It goes on to say good spell, literally good spell from God, good. Let's go further here. Let's go down. We'll just go further down here. It says reward for bringing good news. English word originally had a long O. Let me say that again. This English word originally had a long O, but it shifted under mistaken association with God, as if God's story, right? So it was a long O. So instead of saying God spell, it's supposed to be what? Good spell. Let's read some more about this. The mistake was very natural, as the resulting sense was much more obvious, appropriate than that of good tidings, for a word which was chiefly known as the name of a sacred book or of a portion of the. I ain't gonna get into this, the liturgy. All right, but going back here again, you say Godspell or gospel, it was actually good spell. But again, when did the Most High ever teach us to push this stuff? The push to go out and say we're gonna teach the God spell, right? So let's go further here. Let's go further here. Let's go here. Let's go for. Let me reiterate this point here. First elements of the Old English word originally had a long O, but shifted under mistaken association with God, right? And even that term God is a transliteration of Elohim, and some would say Elohim. But nevertheless, right, getting back to the deception of what? The English language, because we are thinking that is okay. You see people singing, we even have genres, God spell music, right? Oh, gospel music, God spell. Oh, yeah, gospel. And we see what are some of the problems that's all up in that genre. Got a lot of witches and warlocks up in there. All right. So the etymology definition of spell. Let me give you clarity on spell. We covered this on the first session here last weekend, but nevertheless, let's deal with it. Story, saying, tale, history, narrative, fable, discourse, command. Wait a minute. Paul said, don't get caught up in what? Endless genealogy, fables. In other words, lies, tales. Anyway, says story, saying, tale, history, narrative, fable, discourse, command. But then when we go further down, we see what? When it says Gothic, spill, in other words, report, discourse, tale, fable, myth. Right? It goes on to say, let me read the bottom here. Yeah, it says an utterance, right? From the 12th century, says an utterance. Something said, a statement, remark, meaning, set of words with supposed magical or occultic powers, incantation, charm. You see that the word spell is interchangeable with the word charm, first recorded in the 1570s. Hence, any means or cause of enchantment. The term spell is generally used for magical procedures which cause harm or forcing people to do something against their will, unlike charms for healing and protection. You see this crazy stuff here, guys. So set of words with supposed magical or occult powers, incantation. So I ask this question again. Did the disciples spread the good spell? I'm going to ask this again. Did the disciples spread the good spell? Did the disciples spread the good spell? let's deal with this Greek word here for testify, right? Let's see what it means here, right? Let's see what it says here, right? It says here, right? Uh, charge, testify, right? Witness. It says, and there's a sub entry here, to confirm a thing by testimony. But let's see where this word is highlighted at. Let's go to Acts 28, verse 23. I'm going to give some clarity here. It says, and when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him into his lodging, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of God. Wait a minute. Persuading them concerning Jesus. In other words, Yahweh Shai, both out of what? The law of Moses and out of the prophets from morning till evening. So we see that the apostle Paul here is using what? The testimony. Notice what we see here. Let me go back. To whom he expounded and testified. He is bearing witness of the Hebrew Israelite Messiah by using what? The law of Moses and the what? Writings of the prophets. The law of Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible, right? The Pentateuch, right? The law of Moses, right? Take all 5 of them, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, right? And Deuteronomy, all those 5 books, and also what? The prophets, right? It says from morning till evening. So he's doing this all day, showing them that what? That confirming through the law and the prophets that many keep saying we don't have to deal with no more. You know, calling it old. They didn't have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John at that time. They were what? They had their testimonies, but guess what? It wasn't called a God spell. It was a testimony. And at that time, when the Hebrew Israelite Messiah walked this earth, he didn't have what we would call the New Testament. He didn't have none of that. He was teaching out of what? The law and the prophets, the law of Moses, or the book of Moses and the prophets. So here it says, persuading them concerning Yahweh Shai, Jesus the Christ, both out of the law of Moses and out of the prophets from morning till evening. But let me give you some confirmation here. Revelation chapter 12, verse 17. And the dragon, this is dealing with the beast, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. This is going back to Genesis chapter 3. The seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. The dragon, Hashatan, was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. The remnant, this is not dealing with some spiritual Israel, the nonsense that you hear these people teaching. It's dealing with a physical Israel. It's not dealing with, see, this is where many are taking Paul's letter all out of context. The remnant of her seed. That means that they're still going to be what? Blood descendants of Israel, not some spiritual thing that they've been making in general. I have one scripture that I could shut it all down, and I know that they won't be able to explain it, but I'm not going to put it publicly. I'm not going to do that. Well, that'll be internal teachings, because many will take anything they can to try to warp it and twist it and so forth. I'm not throwing these pearls out to the swines. All right. So, but nevertheless, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep what? The commandments of who? Yahweh, and have what? The testimony of who? So you cannot say that you are following the Most High if you don't hold on to the commandments. His seed is those who are what? Keeping the commandments of the Most High and holding on to what? The testimonies. What are the testimonies? Matthew, the testimonies of Matthew, the testimonies of Mark, the testimony, the writings, the letters of Luke, right? The testimony of John, the writings that Luke wrote, as far as with the book of Acts. Those are the testimonies. The letter that James wrote to the Israelites to encourage them. The letter to the Hebrews, encouraging them not what? To do what? Forsake the assembly of coming to one another, coming together to encourage one another. Testimonies. Revelation says, through the blood of the Lamb and the words of their testimony, they were able to what? Overcome. Man, guys, this right here shuts a lot of this nonsense down. So did the Hebrew Israelite Messiah teach a good spell, or did he teach the good word? Did he teach the good spell, or did he teach the good word? Did he teach the good spell or gospel, or did he teach the good word, the good news, glad tidings? All right. Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. Let's see what he says here. what it says here in Matthew 4:23. And Jesus, Yahweh Shai, went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, Mashkan, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom. He's teaching the God spell of the kingdom and healing all manner of sicknesses and all manners of diseases among the people. Wait a minute, we see gospel here. We see God spell here. But what is the actual good word? Let's deal with this. What is the actual good word that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah taught? Glad you asked. Let's go to Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19. Right? I could not right keep it where we thought it was. Let me make sure I got this correct. Man, I done messed up my slide presentation, and let me make sure here. Let me make sure here. Yeah, I done messed up my orders of the slide. I'm sorry, guys. My slide is not correct. Let me see here. That's Isaiah. That's the correct transliteration of Isaiah. I messed up my order here. But guess what? We still got it. We still can roll with this here. But let me read it correctly. Let's first go to Luke, right? Let me make sure we got this correct here, right? Because right here, this is coming out of, matter of fact, let me just this is coming from the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, Luke chapter 1, right? So let me go ahead and put this in the proper order here. Let me do something real quick because I do not like my slides being out of whack. Let me just correct this real quick. So that way it's accurately doing what it's supposed to do, saying what it's supposed to say. All right. So let me go here to make sure it's correct. All right. So this is actually, and let me look at the other one real quick. Let me make sure. All right. Let me copy this over here. My apologies, guys. Let me do a correction real quick. I do not like for my slides to be out of whack, and I want to make sure that you guys are getting the correct here. So this is supposed to be Luke chapter 4, verse 8. Let me correct it. My apologies here. Let me just do this real quick. All right, because it's a pet peeve of mine to have my slides correct. All right. Let me correct that here real quick. All right. So, and let me make sure Isaiah is correct here. All right. This is not, let me see here. To proclaim that acceptable year. Let me pull that. I'm just fixing this real quick, guys, for you because I want to make sure the slides are where it should be. Let me compare it here. Let me make sure because people are watching and many will do whatever they can to say, hey, look, he's not teaching the scriptures correctly. So I want to make sure that this is correct what I show you here. So yeah, now I have it correct now. Let me look here. All right. All right, that's better. That's better. Let me show you this again. All right, let me pull it up here. Let me share it here. All right, my apologies, guys, for my slide being out of whack. I just want to correct this real quick because I do not like to present information that's not accurate, or at least I want to correct it on the fly here. So here we go. Let's pull it back up. All right, so here we go. All right, getting back to it. Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19. Right? It says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the good message, right? That's what it should say. The good message, not the gospel, right? Not the God spell, to teach the good message. And you see the Hebrew word there, bashar, to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of the sight to the blind, to set liberty to them that are bruised. But let's give confirmation, right? The good news. Let's go to Isaiah 61 and notice where you see to preach good tidings. You don't see gospel here. Good tidings. In other words, good news. That term preach good news, bashar, that's the Hebrew word bashar. So the Spirit of the Lord, Yahweh Elohim, is upon me because Yahweh anointed me to preach good tidings, Bashar, unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prisons to them that are bound. But when you notice, and this is I didn't correct the bottom of it, right? This is verse 2 right here, not Luke, but it's actually Isaiah 61 verse 2. And you could compare it to what the verse 19 in Luke says, and you'll see something is missing there, right? Right here in Isaiah that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah is quoting, he said to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn. So this whole portion of the passage is taken out, and the only thing you're going to see is to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. So we have to understand this is a day of judgment, that he's also going to take vengeance for his people. He's going to comfort all of his people that mourn. Do the comparison. You'll see it, guys. Yeah, I got to blame someone. Sister Shalon, thank you for volunteering to take the blame for it. I appreciate it. Sister Shalon knew that I was looking for somebody to take the blame. So Sister Shalon, you take the blame. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to throw somebody in, somebody in there to take the blame with you. I see somebody here. Let me see. Sister Pam, I'm going to have to throw you in there too. All right. I'm going to have to let you guys take the blame for my typos tonight. But Sister Carol, since she said, phew, guess what, Sister Carol, you got to take the blame too. So I'm doing a trifecta here. I'm doing 3. All right. So, but let's go ahead and deal with this some more. Right. Let's deal with this some more. All right. So again, our Most High, right? The Hebrew Israelite Messiah, when you see gospel, actually, no, it should say good message or good tidings, which still transliterates to good news. They were not casting spells. Spells is demonic, right? There's no such thing as a good spell, right? And many people are doing what? Casting spells on what? A lot of the people. But they call it, instead of calling it what it is, many would say is ministry, advertisement. But guess what? Gimmicks. Gimmicks is what? A form of spell casting. Why? Because you are what? Using, instead of what? Silver and gold, because Peter said silver and gold when he said to that man that was that asked him for money. He said, hey, silver and gold, I don't have that to give you. But he gave him the testimony of who? The Hebrew Israelite Messiah. And the man got up and walked with them permanently, walked into the temple. See, we got too many people teaching gimmicks. See, if we want to get to the root of it, right, we have to understand that words have meaning. Too many gimmicks, right? That's witchcraft. That's casting spells. Too many gimmicks among the people of the Most High. You should be able to do what? Draw them with the words that you're teaching. That's why you notice, guys, I don't do a lot of advertisement. I just want to teach. Let the words that's being taught, the love of the Most High that's being taught, let that go out and bear witness of you. You don't have to have all these gimmicks, and you don't have to show people how big or what size your assembly is, or what type of place of worship you have. No, that's all gimmicks. That's what the church does right now. They got to show everyone what. Let me show you the size of our assembly. We got mega going on here. Let me show you how our inside of our sanctuary. No, you don't need none of that. You need to understand the love of the Most High. You need to be delivered. That's the purpose right there. But instead, you see a lot of seances going on among the people of the Most High. The pastors, that slept with half the women, but guess what? He's supposed to be leading the people into prayer. He's supposed to be leading the prayer line. That's witchcraft. He's summoning. He's pleading the blood of Jesus, right? Guess what he's actually doing? He's performing rituals. Summoning satanic spirits. But anyway, let's go a little further with this. I'm gonna close out with one more section here. Let's deal with this some more. Halloween, right? Go further with this, as we already talked about this, but I want to reiterate this. Halloween, All Souls or All Hallows Day, November 1st, was the Christian version of Samhain. So Christianity always got to try to create an alternative, right? All Souls or All Hallows Day, November 1st, was the Christian version of Samhain, the Celtic feast of the dead, named for the Aryan lord of death, Samana, the leveler, or the Grand Reaper, leader of the ancestral ghost, according to the pagan lunar calendar. Festivals were celebrated on the eve rather than the day, right? So therefore, Halloween or All Hallows Eve was the original festival, later displaced to the following day. The Irish used to call the Holy Night the Vigil of Samhain. Churchmen described it as a night of magic charms and divinations, reading the future, with witches, mirrors, and nutshell, ashes, ducking for apples in tubs of water. Like, let me read that part again. Reading the future with witches, mirrors, and nutshell, ashes, ducking for apples in tubs of water. We're going to deal with this here. And it goes on to say here, it says representing soul symbols in the cauldron of regeneration and other objectionable rites. Even today, it is said that a girl who peels an apple before a mirror on Halloween, right? They didn't think about the apple, right? Think about a lot of the so-called children's stories. We allowed Walt Disney to introduce the witchcraft to our children. But nevertheless, even today, it is said that a girl who peels an apple before a mirror on Halloween will see the image of her future husband in the glass. Christian authorities wrote of Halloween, many other superstitious ceremonies, the remains of Druidism, and observed on this holiday, which will never be eradicated while the name Samhain is permitted to remain. Of course, the original divinations were oracular utterances by the ancestral dead who came up from the tombs on Halloween, sometimes bringing gifts to the children of their living descendants. In Sicilian Halloween traditions, in other words, this is what it is. The dead relations have become the good fairies of the little ones. Similar customs are observed at Christmas. All right. We going in here, right? So by the 43rd AD, the Romans conquered the Celts and two autumn festivals of the Romans, right? You had Feralia and Pomona's Day, right? Were intermingled with the Celtic feast, right? You see how they continue to compromise and mesh things together. That's anyway, the Roman way. So Feralia was observed on February 21st. This day signified the end of the Parentalia, all right, however you want to pronounce it, a 9-day feast for the dead, right? During the feast of Parentalia, the Romans made offerings in honor of their deceased family members. At midnight on Feralia, Feralia, let me pronounce it correctly. At midnight on Feralia, the heads of each household would speak to the evil spirits and ancestors to ensure their return to the spirit world. Let me read that again. At midnight on the Feralia, the heads of each household would speak to the evil spirits and ancestors to assure their return to the spiritual world. If this was done on February 22nd, the Caricia, in other words, the Caracanatio feast was held. On this day, families feasted together and offered food and incense in honor of layers. You see all the demonic stuff here. Also on this day, any family quarrels were forgotten. On November 1st, the festival of the fertility goddess Pomona was celebrated. Pomona was the goddess of fruit and trees and was often depicted with apples, right? So let's deal with the association of apples. Let's deal with this here. The association of apples with Halloween. Before I explain the significance of the apples, it's important to understand the 5-pointed star, right? The pentagram is also known as the pentacle, right? And this is what it is, right? Based on the symbol of the goddess core, right? As in what? The core of an apple, right? Based on the symbol of the goddess core in the apple core, the pentacle or pentagram was worshipped by Pythagorean mystics who also called it Fa. The birth letter interlaced 5 times. Its meaning was given as life or health. Some called it the star of Ishtar or Isis or of Isis or of Isis underworld twins, Nephthys, right? In Egypt, the 5-pointed star represented the underground womb. Use of the pinnacle as an amulet of protection or healing was common in Babylon, where it was often drawn on pots to preserve their contents. The amulets known as the 7 seals show a pentacle as the first of its holy signs, right? So according to Judeo-Christian traditions, the seals were supposed to represent the secret names of God. The pentacle was the chief of them, inscribed on King Solomon's magic ring. Thus, it was sometimes erroneously called Solomon's seal. However, it was more closely connected with pagan deities than with the Jewish one. All right. A pentacle with one pointed straight down represented the horned god, whom Neoplatonic philosophers called pentamorph. He was the 5 shapes. He of the 5 shapes, in other words. And then this is where you get into that god Pan. Pan had what? Hoofs. He was also referred to as the horned god. He will be equivalent to the depiction of how they depict Satan, Hashatan. Pan was not the Peter Pan that you see in Walt Disney. Pan is actually what? A pagan god. And you'll see how bestiality and all that stuff is involved in the worship of Pan, the rituals of Pan. So this is where you see he appeared in human form, as well as the 4 horned animals. And here you see bull, ram, goat, stag. Let me read that again. Bull, ram, goat, and stag. So again, a pinnacle with 1 point straight down represented the horned gods. So who is the horned god? Glad you asked. Going right back to part 1. The horned god is the goat demon Melech, right? Who is also referred to as the Baphomet, also referred to as the goat of Mendes, right? So we got to go further with this. We got to understand this, guys. It's wickedness all up in here. So how are we justifying these behaviors? How are we justifying all these things? Go further with this. So what is the Star of David? Still with the Star of David. Shield of David, or many would call it the Magen David or the Magan Dawad. Shield of David, the so-called Star of David or hexagram constructed of 2 interlocked triangles, now accepted as a symbol of Judaism. Actually, it was not associated with Judaism until the late Middle Ages. It was not officially accepted as a Jewish symbol until the 17th century. The original source of the Magen David was the Tantric Great Yantra, and now we get into Hinduism, which stood for union of the sexes. And when you start understanding the Kali dance of death, that's what this stands for. It's a sexual ritual. Matter of fact, when you start understanding the steeples on the churches, guess what? It comes from this symbol right here, which stood for union of the sexes. The downward pointing triangle being female, the upward pointing triangle, right? The triangle pointing upwards, right, is the male. The 2 signifying the eternal union of God and the goddess. Kabbalistic sex worship brought through the yantra into Jewish tradition, but later, as you see what it says here, puritanical, or whatever you want to pronounce it, I'm butchering the words tonight, guys. My apologies here. I'm not even gonna mess with. I'm not gonna continue to torture my tongue right now because my mouth is dry right now. But nevertheless, you get the gist of it, right? But this is all dealing with what? Worship, the Kabbalah. This is dealing with all those different things, these systems that we see out here, right? So when we start understanding this thing, right, let me just show you something here, why it's important for us to know the word for ourselves. Let me show you something here. Let me show you a couple of things so that way we can get proper clarity here. Let me show you a couple of more clips and we'll go from there.
Today I'm going to talk about what a Christian witch is. It's a person that chooses to use witchcraft to worship God. I know it says in the Bible that witchcraft is bad, Well, when they were translating the Bible, there was a lot of words that we didn't have that they had, and so they had a tendency to lump everything together. When it came to witchcraft, it just meant any type of magic whatsoever. The witchcraft in the Bible was often spirit work, divination, necromancy, things of that nature, or it meant someone who poisoned or assassinated people. When that came in and they decided to translate it into English, they had a tendency to just lump everything together and put it under witchcraft. So it's obvious that witchcraft today is something completely different. And it doesn't even have to have any of those things. And so if it doesn't have any of those things, then you should technically be able to do it within your religious rules, right? Well, a lot of people have a problem with that because they feel that they don't know. They don't actually understand what witchcraft is, and they think it's automatically the worshiping of Lucifer. They think it is going against God. And my problem with it is that God brought me to this path. And because he brought me to this path, when people decide to tell me that I can't do it or this isn't real, I get pretty defensive about it. It is the certain usage of magic within the rules of Christianity. So it's kind of complicated and yet not complicated at all. A lot of people use tarot. Tarot will actually tell you in the beginning that you aren't really supposed to use it for divination or for fortune telling. And a lot of it is based off of a psychological basis of the brain. The minor arcana are based inside minor things that happen within a person's life. Major arcana are major things. And so when you deal the cards out, it just has a better chance of giving you advice about a present situation than it will giving you future basis. And so when I do tarot, I tend to stay away from the divination side of it.
All right, so listen how she bent and twist up the word. Notice how the first witch I showed, how she bent and twist the word by saying that, we were, before we took on physical form, we didn't have a shape, all this crazy stuff. Let me show you one more form of witchcraft, right? Because I showed you the Christian witches, but let me show you another form of witchcraft. Remember, witchcraft means to what iniquities means to bend and twist the transgression against what the law of the Most High. So let's see what happens here. Let me show you another video here.
This is how the Zohar interprets the opening words of Genesis. The Hebrew is Bereshit bara Elohim, which we usually translate in the beginning, God created. But the Zohar insists on reading the words in the precise order in which they appear in Hebrew. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara, it created, Elohim, God. In the beginning, it created God. The Zohar takes that to mean, in the beginning, infinity created God. Now, what could that possibly mean? God is now the object of the verse, not the subject, which sounds impossible or heretical, but the Zohar, I think, is saying that infinity is the true reality of God. Anything else that we call God is puny compared to that. That's our own imagination or our own estimate of what God could be.
See, that's why I wanted to show you that, because when you see capitalistic, guess what? You start understanding Jewish mysticism. Notice what that witch that I showed, because I showed you two Christian witches, but you see witches in Judaism. That particular person was teaching Genesis 1:1. See, one of the tests that I do when people want to have a discussion with me, I ask them, like when they try to go into deep, like with other texts, okay, explain to me Genesis 1:1. And based upon how you explain Genesis 1:1, then that'll tell me whether or not we should have a discussion. In Genesis 1:1, you do not see any, whether you're reading it in the modern Hebrew, ba ra sheep, bara Elohim, right? That's right there, just that one line right there, right? That's the Israeli language. Or if you read it from the ancient, all right, paleo perspective, bara shayath, bara Alahayam, right? So you'll see just right there, you do not see anything about infinity, the it, right? So what does he mean when he say that it created Elohim or Alahayim? That it he's referring to is the Ein Sof. He's referring to what they call the infinite one. He's saying that, and when you understand the Kabbalistic teachings here, they teach that the Ein Sof is God before God. They teach that he is the infinite one. That's whom they truly worship. So they teach that the Ein Sof, before he created everything, he had to find himself, right? So he created the heavens and earth to find himself, right? They also, and I didn't upload the video, they teach about what is called the Ten Sephira, which is inside the Kabbalistic teachings. They teach the diagram of, supposed to be the diagram of the Most High, right? You see that same thing that's called the Tree of Life in the Kemetic teachings. You see that same Tree of Life inside the what? Hinduism, but it's still the same mysticism. So here they teach that they have the 10 parts, the 10 body parts to the Most High. They teach that at the bottom of the torso, you see what is called the phallus, which is called the foundation, and then which is they refer to as the Yasad. And then you see what is called the Shekinah or Shekinah, that is the what many call the Shekinah glory, right? That's supposed to be the feminine aspect. So you see the masculine and feminine. So this diagram is supposed to have both masculine and female body parts. Why is that important? The Mishnah teaches that Adam was a hermaphrodite, that he and Eve occupied the same body. That's fact. I proved it in other teachings. Teach that Adam was bisexual. See, guys, this is why it's so important for us to know this word for ourselves and stop being dependent on everyone else. Do like I did. I had to throw out. When I was studying Hebrew, I had to throw out all these extra stuff. Why? Because it was taking me into mysticism or filling my mind with mysticism. I didn't want to deal with that garbage. My mother has all of this. The Talmud, the Mishnah has all the entire library. I'm not new to this. Right. So that's why we have to toss out these books of mysticism. That's why we see the problems that we see within like Calvinism, because Calvinism is nothing more than Judaism. That's all it is. Calvinism is still connected to the Catholic Church. When you start understanding the Jesuits, they were Jewish people. They were still teaching what? All of what I'm sharing with you. You have Christian mysticism, Jewish mysticism, throw all of this stuff out. We got witchcraft all around us. So if you hear any of our brothers or sisters teaching that it created Elohim or Alahayim, that tells you that they're diving nose first, face first in Jewish mysticism. Like the Most High tell us, flee from them, run from them, stay away from them. I'd rather for you to stay in the English language before you get caught up in all of that stuff. All right. But nevertheless, let's go to the hexagram. What is the hexagram? And let's deal with this. The familiar design of two interlocked triangles is generally supposed to have represented the Jewish faith since the time of David or Solomon. Therefore, this hexagram is known as Magen David or Magan Dawad, Shield of David, or the Star of David, or Solomon's Seal. Actually, the hexagram had nothing to do with either David or Solomon. It was not mentioned in Jewish literature until the 12th century AD and was adopted as a Jewish emblem until the 17th century. The real history of the hexagram began with Tantric Hinduism, right? Where it represented union of the sexes. So when you see that so-called Star of David, you're dealing with what? The union of the sexes. The downward pointing triangle was the female primordial image of, or Yani, which yantra, existing for the universe. In the course of infinite time, the goddess received a spark of life within her triangle. So I'm gonna stop right there. All right. So you see that it's all mysticism. It's all mysticism. It's all mysticism. You see all of this mysticism all among the Most High's people. This is why he said remnant. It's only going to be a remnant. It said that the Most High people is going to scarcely make it. In other words, we're going to barely make it because the deception, as Sister Pam just pointed out here, Sister Pam and I agree with you. The deception is deep. We got people saying it without even questioning gospel. I'm teaching the gospel. Man, you teaching a good spell. You're not teaching good tidings or glad tidings. You're not teaching, the Dabar Tawab. You're not teaching the good word. You're not teaching the good holy word from the Most High. Guys, this deception is real, guys. This deception is real. That's why I say we got to get back to, we got to focus on this stuff right here. See, all the enemy is doing right now is trying to get us distracted. And now we start what? Getting behind the curve of what we need to be doing. That's why I'm not even dealing with these guys no more. Forget all of them. All right. When I say these guys, I'm talking about the urban apologetic community and all of those that want to come at us. Man, forget all of them. Forget all of them. I'm just going to do what we're supposed to do here. It's imperative for our people to wake up. All right. So let's deal with the bobbing for apples. And we're going to close out on a couple more things, and that'll be it. And we'll finish this lesson off next week because it's a lot of information that I have. We'll deal with witches. Okay. Warlocks. We'll deal with all of that next week, but we'll deal with it a little bit here, but we'll deal with it primarily next week. So the origins of bobbing for apples. The origins of bobbing for apples, right? Going back to what? That pinnacle, that 5-pointed star, right? Going back to there. All right. What does that mean? All right. Let's go back here. All right. The 5-pointed star in a circle was the Egyptian hieroglyph for the underworld womb, where resurrection was brought about by the mother heart of transformation. In Christian iconography, also this apple sign represented the virgin concealed within the mother, like Kor within the Demeter. And then we goes on to see here where it says among gypsies, occult couples carefully cut the apple to reveal its pentacle and ate it together as magical nourishment during tantric intercourse. You see how this all started getting into the sexual rituals? So if you cut your apple, right, you know how you just have your apple standing up, right? And, and if you cut it horizontally, you'll see that when you open up the center of it, it's going to look like the pinnacle. It's going to look like a 5-pointed star. That's what they're referring to right here. So, and ate it together as magical nourishment during tantric intercourse. A gypsy maiden was supposed to bring about her partner's mystic union with the soul of the earth through her own body. Thus, she was a Shakti, right? That's Hinduism, right? Shakti, right? Also referred to as the Shekinah or Shekinah, Astarte, all right? The groves, Asherah, right? And the apple was her sexual symbol. It was a custom for a gypsy girl to choose her lover by tossing an apple at him, just as Kali Shakti chose Shiva to be her doomed bridegroom. The reason why it says doomed bridegroom, because Shakti will, Kali Shakti will dance over Shiva. Remember, getting back to that hexagram, the union, right, of the sexes, right? That union, it was what? Sexual prostitution. It was what? A sexual sacrificial murder, right? Because as she's having what intercourse with Shiva, what she's doing is what? Also killing him in the process. And you saw Beyonce wearing this Kali shirt when she was doing a dance a few years ago. But anyway, Halloween apple games descended from Celtic feast at Samhain. Let me give you some more history on that. The Feast of the Dead at the end of October. Now pay attention to this. Catching at apples suspended from strings or bobbing in water may have invoked hanged or drowned witches. So this game hinted at cheating death in the form of Suritwin, another name for Morgan as Soul Goddess. At the end of the game, all players ran away to escape the black short-tailed soul. Halloween apples were also used for divination, as if they were oracular ghosts called up from the underworld. Such magic was especially associated with women, harking back to the pagan tradition of female control of the spirits in that world. The Volsung cycle showed that a man must be provided with apples of hell by his wife, whose gift had the power to preserve him when he died and descended under the earth. Thus, Halloween apples were often linked with marriage. One who peeled an apple before a candle-lit mirror on Halloween would see the image of a future spouse. So again, catching apples at suspended catching at apples suspended from strings or bobbing in the water may have invoked hanged or drowned witches. The game hinted at cheating death. Right. So when you see this game bobbing for apples, right, guess what? You're playing with death. You're literally playing with death. You're tempting the Most High. You can literally drown from bobbing for apples. See, these are the things that we have no clue about. Bobbing for apples is actually testing and tempting. Let's see what the scripture says about this. Matthew 4, verse 6. And said unto him, this is the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, right? Yahushua Mashiach. And he saith unto him, if thou be the son of Elohim, the son of God, cast thyself down. For it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. So Hasatan is telling the Hebrew Israelite Messiah to commit suicide, to play with his life. And Yahushua said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not what? Tempt the Lord thy God. In other words, Yahweh Elohim. But guess what? He's actually quoting the law. Deuteronomy 6, verse 16 through 18. Let's see what he says here. Ye shall not tempt the Lord, Yahweh, your Elohim, as ye tempted him in Massah. It goes on to say, ye shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahweh, your Elohim, and his what? Testimonies and his statutes, which he hath commanded thee. Verse 17, thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of Yahweh, that he may be well with thee, that it may be well with thee, rather, and that thou mayest go in and possess the good land, which Yahweh swear unto thy fathers. All right. So you see, the Most High made it clear that we're not supposed to be tempting him and testing him. We'd be surprised the origins of all these things. Man, this deception is so deep that we're dealing with. So let's revisit the connection, the connection to the apples. Let's revisit that. Let's deal with charms one more time. I want to read to you what charms is, and is interchangeable with what we dealt with spell, good charms, right? You see what it says here, incantation, magic charm. You see what it goes on to say, spell, song, enchantment, religious formula. And then you see from canary to sing. From what? Canary to sing. A lot of witchcraft going on through songs, right? Charms. That's the biggest deception right there. That's the biggest area that you see witchcraft is going on. Sound, video, visuals, music, song, verse, canary, right? This also deals with what? In part one, we dealt with it, ventriloquy. All the things we think that is innocent, we don't even know that we introducing our children to all kinds of witchcrafts and don't even realize it. But the the verb definition of this word, it says to recite or cast a magic spell, to enchant, to fill someone with desire. See, this is what we have to be careful. Many trying to promote their ministries, many trying to promote their assemblies, right? They're using all kinds of witchcraft to what? Fill someone with desire. Oh man, I want to show you these. Let me show you what our assembly does. Let me show you how it been. That's getting into what's charms right here. That's right. We see it on Lucky Charms. We see it all around us. Don't even realize it. Don't even realize it. And then we wonder why we have so many strongholds. So the Hebrew dictionary definition of charms, let's deal with this real quick. About to wrap this up. To join, specifically by means of what? Spells, to fascinate. Let me see, to join again, specifically by means of spells, to fascinate. All right. So both apple and charms are connected to the Disney cartoons. Let me say that again. Both the apples, right, and the charms are connected to the Disney cartoons.
What?
That's right. It is connected to the Disney cartoons. Many of you don't even realize there's so many subliminal messages in these Disney cartoons. We got to give it a 3-piece. You'd be surprised all the sexual symbols that are in these cartoons of Disney. Aladdin, Lion King, Bugs. It's a lot of sexual symbols that's subliminally there that you may not pick it up with your naked eye, but it's there if you start really paying attention to it. All right, so let's deal with this some more as we get ready to wrap this up. The deception of Prince Charming. Notice the name of it, Prince Charming, right? That's him right there, right? The deception of Prince Charming. So Cinderella, when Cinderella's cruel stepmother prevents her from attending the royal ball, she gets some unexpected help from the lovable mice, Gus and Jack, and from her fairy godmother. But guess what? Basically, you still see the image of Prince Charming there, right? Then we deal with Sleeping Beauty. After being snubbed by the royal family, a malevolent fairy places a curse on a princess, which only a prince can break, along with the help of 3 good fairies. Right? Same thing. You're dealing with poison apples. You're dealing with the Prince Charming. Prince what? Charming. All right. So we just dealt with that here. But we also see that image here, Snow White. Okay. Snow White, right? The wicked queen orders the murder of her innocent stepdaughter, but later discovers that Snow White is still alive and hiding in a cottage with 7 friendly little miners, disguising herself as a hag. Notice what we see there, a hag, and we're going to deal with this here. The queen brings a poisoned apple to Snow White, who falls into a death-like sleep that can be broken only by a kiss from who? Prince Charming. And we see that's where you get to what? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all? Guess what? That's all demonic worship. Mirrors are important in demonic worship, demonic rituals. All right. And Walt Disney, guess what? It's filled with this. So those who are praying to the Most High to send you a Prince Charming, guess what? This is who you are actually praying, praying our Father to send you. Ephesians chapter 2:2, it says here, we're in time past, ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. So guess what? When you are asking for Prince Charming, you are actually asking for the spirit of the serpent. You cannot break a curse with a curse. So again, beware of Prince Charming's kiss, because that's what they try to tell you, right? When you watch the stories, have our young girls dreaming for this magic kiss that they're going to receive from Prince Charming. Notice all the demonic stuff there. Luke 22:48 says this, and Yahushua said unto Judas, betrayers, it says here, let me say it again. But Yahushua, or Jesus the Christ, said it to him, Judas, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? He's like, what are you doing? You betraying me with a kiss? So when the apple is cut, the seeds form a type of pentagram, a symbol that represents fertility to the Celtics. All right. So again, getting ready to wrap this up. So again, be careful with Prince Charming. Be careful of the kisses. Be careful. All of those things still have what? Demonic symbolism to it. So again, you see it all through Walt Disney cartoons. You see it all through the children's stories that you're what? reciting and speaking demonic stuff over them. All right. So again, when the apple is cut in half, the seeds of form a type of pentagram, a symbol that represented fertility to the Celts. And there it is right there. Remember, if you slice that apple in half, right, horizontally, that is what you're going to see. You're going to see the image core, right? That goddess core. You're going to see that right here. And that's what it's referring to. So wrapping this up, the divination of the time and fertility of Pomona were combined in the spirit of Samhain festival. After the emergence of Christianity, Samhain was still observed. Supplant Samhain, Pope Boniface the Fourth designated May 13th as All Saints' Day in honor of the dead saints. So again, however, this was not sufficient to completely thwart the deeply entrenched Samhain festival. So in 835 AD, Pope Gregory IV transferred All Saints' Day to November 1st. All right. Samhain, which was celebrated in the night before, the night before, eventually was called All Hallow Eve and later became Halloween. So in the 10th century, the Catholic Church established November 2nd as All Souls Day to honor the dead who were not considered saints. On All Souls Day, it was common for the poor to go a souling. This consisted of going door to door and requesting simple pastries called soul cakes. In exchange, the poor would pray for the souls of the home dwellers, dead relatives that were in purgatory. So this is, again, the origin of trick or treat. All right. Wrapping this up right here. Matter of fact, let's see how much we got here, because I could give you another example of divination, but I want to make sure that we're not going too long. All right. All right. Let's see here. We've been going for 2 hours. It's 12 right now. All right. I'm gonna try to speed this up right here. I'm gonna deal with this one example of divination that many of you guys may not be familiar with. All right. Quasam, right? Let's deal with divination here. The Wheel of Fortune is a form of divination. The Casino Roulette is part of divination. The lottery is dealing with divination. So let's deal with gamble real quick. It says risk something of value on a game of chance. Right? Then you see to play, but down below you see what? Fumble. Originally regarded as a slang word, but then it goes on to say to squander in gambling. So risk something of value on a game of chance to squander in gambling. So let's deal with the goddess Fortune. We're going to close out with her. The goddess Fortune. The Roman triple goddess. Notice what I said. The Roman triple goddess of fate. Triple goddess, right? Uni, Trinity, triune, triple. See that term Trinity, right? The concept of it did not start with the Hebrew Israelites. It was in the Greeks. It was in the Romans. It was in the Etruscans. It was in other belief systems that pointed to who? The triple goddess. And we're going to deal with the triple goddess real quick. So the Roman triple goddess of fate had many fortune titles. And we see some of the titles here. I'm not going to butcher some of these names. But you see the different names here. Fortune Primigenia, the firstborn Fortuna, Mullibris, goddess of women, Fortuna Scribunda, the fate who writes, Fortune or Fortuna or whatever, Regia, goddess of rulership. You get the gist of it. Then you see where it says here, Bona Fortuna or Mala Fortuna, meaning what? Good or bad fate. So Fortuna Augusti was the foundation of the emperor's right to rule. Romans swore by the emperor's personal Fortuna, who governed his soul. Caesars constantly had before them, even during sleep or void. Excuse me, even during sleep or on voyages. A golden statue of the goddess, which on their death they transmitted to their successor, and which they invoked under the name Fortuna Regia or Regia, however you want to pronounce it, Regia or Regia. So Fortuna Regia, a translation of Teke Basilios, right? In other words, fate of rulership. But it goes on to say the Tyche was the same as Fortuna. When she was a fate attached to an individual, like a guardian angel, she was a psychic, in other words, soul, or Amina, which means spirit. Her Roman name Fortuna may have descended from Vortumna, right? Let me say it again, Vortumna. In other words, she who turns the year. Still going all the way back to what we talked about, right? That circle, right? Right? That cycle, right? The great mother turning the celestial wheel of the stars and also the karmic wheel of fate. Under the name Agatha, kindly fortune, right? Which means kindly fortune, the goddess was associated with a serpent consort named Agathodemon, in other words, a genius of kindly rate. So on the Orphic bowl of the 5th century AD, he appeared next to her in the guise of the Lord of Death, halfway around the circle at the point of midnight, holding in his right hand a poppy stalk of the sleep of death turned downward. In this case, Fortuna and her consorts stood for a fortunate life, followed by a gentle death. The goddess' favorite ones went to her paradise in the far west, often called the Fortunate Isles. On the goddess magic wheel of time, odd numbers were sacred to her, even numbers to her consort. Roman religious festivals were scheduled for the odd number of female days. And right, and this is where you tying into the wheel, as you see in the background there. That's what it is. That wheel of fortune, that roulette table. That's what it all comes from here, because they were supposed to be propitious. Then male days, Fortuna became patroness of gamblers when her fate wheel was secularized as the carnival wheel of fortune, and she was renamed Lady Luck. Y'all see that with the lottery, Lady Luck. In England, she was transferred into a fairy creature called a portune, which might lead horses astray, make travelers lose their way, and other pranks. Like most other forms of the goddess, she was converted into a malicious spirit. So you see that's fortune. That's the goddess Fortuna, which comes from which you get the word fortune from. So is casting lots the same as gambling? Right? In the Bible, it's called casting lots. And we're going to deal with this real quick, tie it all in. So the Hebrew definition of cast, Nathan, it means this: apply, add, apply, appoint, ascribe, consider, count. So the Hebrew definition of lots, right? All right, I'm going further with this, right? Let's see what it says here. It says, to be rough as stone, properly a pebble, a lot, small stone being used for that purpose, a portion or destiny. But let me give you confirmation here, because I'm going to show you they were not gambling. When you see casting lots, it's not gambling. It's not even close to what we think gambling is versus casting lots. Because many say, oh, they casted lots. No, they were not gambling. And we're going to explain this. I'm going to let the scriptures explain it for you, for us, right? So in Aaron shall cast Nathan lots Gawar Gawaral, or Garal, however you want to pronounce it, upon the two goats, one lot for Yahweh and the other lot for the scapegoat. So they already selected what? Two perfect goats among the within the criteria of the Most High. So now what they're doing is what? Deciding which goat is going to be what? Sacrifice, and the other is going to what? They're going to allow to walk, right? I'm just keeping it simple. So Aaron shall bring the goat upon which the Lord's lot fell and offer him for a sin offering, right? So this is not gambling. Either one, guess what? Whichever one that the lot fell on, either one of them was still would have what? Fit the need, because both of them met a certain criteria. All right. But let's go further here. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before Yahweh to make an atonement with him and to let him go for a scapegoat. All right. Azal Zal, right? Into the wilderness. So one goat was sacrificed while the other goat was what? Let go into the wilderness, right? And so that means that what? That's representing what? Us being what? Free from sin. Okay. So what is the scapegoat? Right? We dealing with it real quick. But what is the scapegoat? Goat sent into the wilderness on the Day of Atonement, symbolic bearer of the sins of the people. That's all it means. So it goes on to say goat that departs. So goat sent into the wilderness on the Day of Atonement, symbolic bearer of the sins of the people. Okay, so additional examples of casting lots, right? Dealing with what? Gambling. Let's deal with this real quick. Gambling means what? Again, risk something of value on a game of chance to squander in gambling. So let's deal with the disciples. They cast lots, right? The disciples cast lots. Nathan, Garal, or Gawaral, however you want to pronounce. About to sneeze here. So Acts chapter 1, verse 23 through 26, it says this. And they appointed two, Joseph and Barsabbas, right? Now notice, the disciples are replacing Judas. They picked two. So either one of them were going to serve the purpose. So what do? They all drew what? Lots to see, and trusting that the Most High is going to what? Make the final decision. That's not gambling. They're saying, hey, both of them are qualified, but they're going to what? Let the Most High, by the casting of the lots, they're going to have faith that the Most High is going to do what? Make the final decision. So they appointed two, Joseph and Barsabbas, who was surnamed Justus and Matthias, right? And they prayed and said, Lo, Lord, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether of these two thou hast chosen. So they put their faith and trust in the Most High, that he may take part of this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. Verse 26, and they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias, right? So we see that they casted lots, but it wasn't a gamble. They wasn't gambling somebody's life, because guess what? They all served together, but they allowed the casting of the lots to what? Let the most, that's the Most High. They having faith that the Most High is what? Making the final selection. And he was numbered with the 11 apostles. Okay. So let me give you more clarity with Proverbs expressing basis of casting lots. Proverbs 16 verse 33, and this give you the basis. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is who? Is of Yahweh. So it's making it clear it was not a matter of chance or superstition, but a matter of faith. The people believed that Yahweh in his sovereignty would direct the outcome of the lots, and that his will would be revealed. People who cast lots in their decisions were demonstrating their trust and dependence upon Yahweh, as well as their desire for his will to be done. Wrapping this up. So is casting lots the same as gambling? Absolutely not. Anything outside of what I just shared with you biblically is the biblical casting of lots is cleromancy, right? And this is what cleromancy is. Divination by throwing dice. Okay. Anything outside of biblical casting of lots is rolling the dice, called gambling. Proverbs 13:11. Wrapping this up. We gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gather by labor shall increase. Let me show this again. Wealth gotten by vanity, habal, shall be diminished. Ma'at, but he that gather by labor shall increase. Deuteronomy 18:10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughters, right, pass through the fire, or uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. We're going to stop right here, because then I'm getting into the breakdowns of the witch. So I'm going to stop right here. I know I gave you guys a lot of information. Let me just look at the comment section here, and let's see how you guys are making out here. Let's see what we have here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop right here, and we'll pick up on our part 3, and we'll do this. Fine, we'll leave. We'll stop right here. We'll do part 3 next week, and we'll go further in exposing the witchcraft. And what I want to also do once we get past this, I want to put together a jury, right, of 7 of you guys, right. Actually, we may see if I can't do 10. I'm beyond 10, so maybe 7 of you guys will select 7 of you guys. And you guys will be the jury. And we're going to have court here. We're going to have court on Christmas being on trial. Okay. We're going to put that on trial. And we're going to allow you guys to vote in the end as I present the case to you. Christmas on trial, Santa Claus on trial. I'm going to give you in-depth case against Santa Claus and why he needs to be locked up. All right. So we're going to deal with that in a couple of weeks. I'll put a couple of posts up there. And if you guys are interested, any of you guys that's interested in being the jury, you'll be live and I'll start off with my my opening arguments, and then I'll go through the presentation of the evidence. All right. So with that being said, let's look at some of the comments, and then we're going to wrap it up here. All right. So like I said, I know I went a little geek mode, but sometimes going geek mode is good. All right, let's see some of the comments here. All right, my sister Rochelle. All right, let's see. Yes, he does everything. Let's see here. My sister Shalon, we are really appreciative for you edifying our spirits with knowledge and truth. Appreciate you, sister. Really appreciate you as well. My buddy right here, Larry Bryce, I appreciate you. This has been a full course meal of truth. Thank you, Pastor Kelly. Appreciate you, brother Larry. I really appreciate you, brother Bryce, for your support. Sister Lynn, pick me. All right. We'll put it together. All right. If you guys want to, those that are interested in being on the jury, all right, we'll go through. We'll pick 7 of you guys, and you guys have to listen to all the evidence. All right. And I'll see if I can get someone from the Christian community to present their case as well. Not necessarily a debate, but kind of like 2 people presenting their court case, right? Their evidence to the jury, and the jury make the final decision. All right. So we'll go from there. So let's see here. I am so done with Christmas. I agree with you, my sister here. Let's see. Timothy, very good lesson, Pastor. Thank you, Timothy, for taking time out of your schedule to watch this lesson. Let's see, Sister Pam. So was casting lots a vote? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what casting lots is, voting. Absolutely. Let's see here. Who else do we have here again? Let's see. Appreciate you again for tuning in. Let's see here. Mr. The Original School. Hexagram is the most powerful symbol used in cults. This actually invokes demons and casts curses. Absolutely. Appreciate your input. Let's see, Dimitri. Thanks for the edifying lesson. Appreciate you as well for tuning in, taking the time out of your schedule. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Malek of the Earth. Appreciate you again. Malak, rather. Excuse me for mispronouncing your name. Let's see. Who else do we have here? All right. Virtuous Jada. Appreciate you as well. Appreciate you for tuning in. Of course, my sister Shawnee, thank you for tuning in as well. Who else do we have here? All right. So I really appreciate you guys' inputs. Let's see here. Shawnette, true believer of the Most High. How come they come up with this this stuff back then? How come they come up with this stuff back then? That's a great question. There's so many questions that we have, and that's why it's so important for us to give this truth. Give this truth. All right. Appreciate you, Yedidiah. Appreciate you for taking the time out of your schedule to watch the presentation. So again, guys, this presentation is not about trying to, throw stones at anyone, cast lots per se at anyone. This is just all about what? Teaching the truth and trying to make sure that our discernment is at the level that it needs to be. So really appreciate you guys. And that's all I have for tonight. I'm going to shut it down. We got a trip that we're doing tomorrow. We will be going out to Jamestown. Our entire assembly will be going into that tomorrow. Let's see here. Pastor Kelly, can you answer my question that I tagged you on? We woke now. I quite honestly, I don't even know. I'm not hardly on Facebook. So if you want to just let me know what the question is, I'll ask you the question. And by the way, I'll make sure I'll send the image to you as well. I forgot to send it to you. I've been, all over the place with being pulled every which way. So my apologies, but feel free to let me know what your question is. All right. Let's see who else do we have here as we wrap this up. One scripture with precepts was presented to me that the Most High is against all these pagan holidays. I was completely done right then and there. Absolutely. It was not anything to go back and forth with, because it's like the scripture makes it plain as day. All right. So you said in the chat tonight, let me see. What can you repost the question? Because it's a lot of comments here, so it may take me a while to going through the questions here. So if you can repost your question, and I can try to, I can see if I can answer your question. All right, because I'm very limited with this chat. It's above in the chat. It's above in the chat. We will. Yeah, I can't see it, quite honestly. If you could repost it, then I'll answer it real quick. But with that being said, family, appreciate you guys for your patience, your time, and be encouraged. Again, after tonight with the whole thing with Dante and Vocab, I just pray that from there we just let it be the end of the discussions with those guys, because they don't want to talk to us. They really don't have a care about what's the truth. All right, so we'll really deal with that some more. So Dante did a great job, but as we see it, it's not going to change anything on their end. They're still going to do what they're going to do. They're going to teach what they want to teach. So, we just go into a different direction away from those guys. All right, let's see here. It was about the idol statues on the coastal sea lines of every country. Yeah, you'll see a lot of that, especially if you understand the grandmother, which you start dealing with the Nicolaites cult, right? Which you get the term Nicholas, right? Nicolaites, which means it means a destruction of people. That's what the Nicolaites mean, and you'll see them mentioned in Revelation chapter 1. I mean, not 1, but chapter 2 and chapter 3. So they were bringing very destructive doctrines among the children of Israel. So you'll see that when you start studying the grandmother, right? How you'll see a lot of these pagan statues at port, at sea, right? And matter of fact, when I do the teaching on Christmas, I'll bring that out, because that's part of the presentation there. But appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, sis, for sharing your question. But with that being said, I got a long morning tomorrow, long day tomorrow. So I'm getting ready to call it a wrap. And I want to say again, if there's anyone that's watching and you do not have an assembly and you're looking for assembly to connect with until you're able to find one in your area, feel free. The email is right there. And we have special meetings every Monday night. And we deal with some core things about what we believe here and what we teach. And then we'll just continue to lay out the foundation for you. And then the goal too, we have another feast day coming up at the end of the year. I mean, not the end of the year, but in December, right? Which is actually not the end of the year. We still have from there, that's like the 10th month. But we'll be dealing with the biblical Feast of Dedication. And for all those that want to be part of that, feel free to let us know. We'll start putting information out on that, so that way you can plan accordingly. So with that being said, family, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Ishtar is the Statue of Liberty. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in. So with that being said, as Moses said to the children of Israel in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14, said, "Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh." These Egyptians that you see today, this siege, this stronghold, the things that you may be dealing with right now, the Most High said it's not going to have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you, but you have to what? Hold your peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. And for the last time, with authority, can't not go back. We cannot stay in this place where we are. We have no other choice but to move forward. So with that being said, family, have a blessed night. Shalom.